So once again, welcome and thank you for coming tonight to the 2025 AITP Technology Leaders Forum. This particular meeting is a little bit different than our usual standard meeting. We're going to have like a Q&A session between you, the audience, and our wonderful expert panels. For a theme for tonight, it's going to be about how AI technology could impact your personal life as well as workplace, okay? Let me get started, and I will just call a name, and I'll promise I'll keep it short this time, right? So, and the full description's out there on the internet, so you're welcome to read it on your own if you wish. So our first gentleman is going to talk about is Brian Feldman. Brian is the Chief Innovation Officer of Theip Bioscience. And the next panel member is Paul Gosselin, right? So Paul is a brand developer, author, and angel investor. Next is Koskas Hatalis. Dr. Hatalis is the founder of, sorry about it, let me try and catch this up here, okay. He's the founder of Go Charlie, and he's a seasoned entrepreneur as well as a researcher. Last but not least is Dr. Sundar Vedantam. He serves as director of software development at Intel Corporation in the network and edge group. I've known Sundar for a while, and he's a very humanistic person. Go out there and support a lot of education system, not just here in India too as well. So, I guess he also very big into the ethics side of our technology, I guess you could say. Okay, welcome, Sundar. Yep. Okay, good. All right, so once again, like I said, you're welcome to look at our site out there. The purpose of this meeting, once again, is you are going to ask them questions, right? And we're going to go down the chain and try to answer the question. I will walk around with a microphone here, and I will pass around, right? I have two microphones, actually, to pass around. And I think, Joyce, hopefully, if you could hear us, if you can't, please let us know, okay? So,
Hey, Theip, just to get some structure going, I was suggesting, since there is workplace, personal life, then there is pro, con for each one of that area. So I was just suggesting to the panel that we can talk just 5 minutes.
Absolutely. Each. So the idea was that, just get our momentum going is, and it might even answer some of the questions you might have out there, is what are the pros and cons of how AI and cybersecurity affect on a personal level as well as a business level. So each, I guess, going to take a turn, just try and explain perhaps one point of view, and then
actually, I'm Chief Innovation Officer of Theip Bioscience. We're a medical device company, so we have founder, we have myself, we have some talented young people. Connor's one of them, helps us develop our medical devices. And what I've seen since I've been working, my career's been about 21 years now since I've graduated from undergrad, is AI is helping to make people more productive as programmers. If you look at, the mid-'80s, when you were developing things, you're writing things line by line in, very primitive languages, and might be, looking at things in manuals, trying to figure out if there was a bug, and in troubleshooting by hand, it was very, very difficult. Then, a couple years later, there might be some help within the, development environment itself, if, you have a subscript out of range or some other error to help you troubleshoot. Then you started back in the late 90s, early 2000s, you'd have search engines like Alta Vista, before Google, and then Google. So if you got some sort of error message or some sort of weird thing, a DLL file didn't work, you could search and it would say, oh, okay, hey, someone else has run into this problem before, and maybe they've posted on a message board. And I've run into a couple of situations like that. One of my clients had a joke that particular audio chip we were working on, there's two people in the world who know how to make it work, me and a guy named Hans in Finland. Posted on the message board. But now what I see a lot of people doing for the, troubleshooting when they're programming is they'll type something in the ChatGPT, and ChatGPT can not only write you small snippets of code from the ground up, like, for example, I've seen people using it to help light a light strip and an array with Arduino, and they'll say, okay, I want all the lights to be yellow. What should the code be? And then I want the lights to be purple. Okay, I want a 5x5 matrix. I want, a stripe in the middle. What should I do? And right now we're updating a lot of code. So ChatGPT not only helps with writing the small snippets of code, but upgrading the code, troubleshooting. It's just making people vastly more productive, than they ever would have been able to otherwise. We're doing a lot more stuff than we could. I mean, now, even with the libraries, you can go and, buy a touchscreen online, look at the library and do it, whereas before, you have to do everything from scratch. It's much easier to, we're not just writing things from scratch, we're combining a lot of things together, and sometimes the AI is kind of the glue with the programming that helps. Another major area that it's really been helping is government filings and bureaucracy when you're making reports. For medical devices, you have to do either a lot of times a pre-market authorization or a 510K, and there's all this, pages and pages of paperwork you need to write. We've seen some of the filings online, that have been publicly made available, and they're like 400 pages. And it'll say something like, well, we want, some sort of a cybersecurity, management report. So you go to ChatGPT, okay, write me up a sample cybersecurity management report for a medical device that tests urine and connects to the internet and puts data on a server. And it'll come back with a 1 or 2 pager that's actually like a pretty good start. Because, if you didn't have something to start with, you have no idea what to do. And it needs a little bit of massaging, a little bit more detail a lot of time. But it's a big step in the right direction, especially when you have a small team and you've never done it before. So those are the 2 major ways that we're starting to use it ourselves.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. I guess Paul, you're next. You could talk some of the challenges of business.
I'm such a positive person. I don't know how I'm doing the negative side of it.
I think it was a challenge.
No, I'll do the negative. It's fine. I'll get into negative mode right now. But I did have one question for Brian. As far as putting data into ChatGPT for the company, as far as IP, are you concerned about anything you're plugging in there as far as safeguards with regard to that data and that IP?
We haven't plugged anything intellectual property wise in the ChatGPT because that would be more of the development of the device itself. But we came up with the development before we really started using ChatGPT in that regard. And a lot of times we're using it for small modules here and there that would be common to many companies, like, how do we do secure HTTP, or how do we apply this type of certificate to code? It's not particular to our application.
Oh, cool. I guess I'll start. I guess on the negative side from the workforce, you're gonna, the companies that we're interacting with, there is some hesitation. Should we integrate AI with regard to how our employees are gonna, how our employees are gonna take it. And for instance, like if we're going to create a predictive analysis tool for like a healthcare company, and their analysts find that you're using AI to create this predictive analysis tool, will that, in effect, be taking their job in the next few years? So, I think the biggest concern on the workforce side is really trying to convey, that AI is really here to make you more efficient, and that that our goal is to help the company grow, and that thus is going to be positive. But unfortunately, people aren't taking it that way. And my second point on the negative is just security and privacy, right? Like we just have. It's funny, we're trying to get rid of TikTok, and now we've got DeepSeek and everybody's just using it like crazy. And to me, it's like, wait a second, like TikTok is so far less dangerous than DeepSeek, right? Which was only built for $5 million. Kostas built his model for, I don't know, what was it, 300,000? It's an amazing model. A lot less. But anyway, DeepSeek wasn't built for 5 million. It was probably built for more like 100 million. But that is a concern just from the standpoint of looking at a DeepSeek and saying, okay, we're going to just give this model all our information and not really be concerned with where it's going. So I guess from an employee side, you really have to watch out what they're using, ChatGPT and Claude, any of these models out there, and making sure that they're not putting IP into the sort of model and getting your IP out there.
All right. Thank you, Paul. I just want to add to you, since I'm on academia side, it's throw a big wrench into whole academia.
Yeah.
Just a little tad bit, So we're changing quite a bit. And it's AI is actually start building into my curriculum too. As both Paul and Brian say, it is actually accelerating our learning process and technology. Just like way back when, for those who are gray hair, how we used to do typewriter, word per minute. It was a big deal in high school, training to do typing, word per minute. It's useless now, right? And those whiteouts totally use this too. So, but same as AI, it's going to change how the way we work. And I think, we still have to adapt regardless. But technology is coming down the road. Yeah, so.
One note, it was interesting. I can't remember what CEO was talking about this, but to incentivize for AI, I'm kind of going more to the positive, sorry. But to incentivize for using AI to get their staff to use AI, they basically were saying, hey, listen, if we integrate AI and we become more efficient, we become more profitable, we're passing that money back down to you. So it's really kind of a good way to do it if you can incentivize your team and the company to think how AI could be a positive, that could help the company grow. And if you're pushing those gains back to your employees, then they're going to be motivated to actually, they're on board with that.
Okay, great. All right, Paul, I'm sorry, Paul, Kostas,
Yeah.
what's your perspective in terms of some of the positive influence that could, good lead-in, by the way, Paul, into the, personal aspect of AI and security?
Well, where do I begin? And I am a little biased because I do have both in AI and I run an AI company to implement it for enterprises. But on a side note on the challenges, especially for education, because you mentioned that, that's the reason why I decided not to become a professor, actually. I saw the writing on the wall a couple of years ago. I graduated a few years ago with my PhD, and I saw that the challenges that I wish I had ChatGPT as a student. Thank goodness I did not, because I actually got to learn something. I actually learned how to write papers and publish all that, and now I'm seeing students. I have a Lehigh professor here. I just talked to her right before this. Just everything submitted is just ChatGPT nowadays, and the learning curve is just starting to flatline. And in fact, I would argue IQs of students are going down slowly because they become so self-reliant on ChatGPT, and that's a rabbit hole. We can go down into that later, but more into the positive sides of AI. From a personal level and a professional level, AI has, I would say, kind of revolutionized everything in the way that we work, and the way that I work, the way I run the company, and the way that we implement our AI systems into other businesses, almost across all kinds of operations. It's accelerating work. It's augmenting workflows. In some areas, it's automating workflows. You were talking before on, you guys were using it for programming. I also use it to do a lot of programming. I use both my AI, ChatGPT, Coursera, Claude 3.7, and what it would take me sometimes, like, for example, I just rebuilt our entire website from the ground up in pure code. Had I done that manually on my own, could have taken me like 2 months to build a whole website, JavaScript, CSS, all that. Took me like less than a week, a couple of days actually, to rebuild the whole website, thanks to AI. Same thing with our platform. We have a SaaS platform. I built the back end, for those who know Fast API. I built the front end in JavaScript, 2 weeks. That would have taken about 6 months' time and a team of 3 developers to build from scratch. So everything is getting deeply accelerated, and that's just from the engineering side of things. From the administrative side, whether it's HR, marketing, and going back to your main point on how does it affect you on a personal level, my biggest interest since I was a kid was I wanted to be able to ask questions and get immediate answers. And I don't know about you guys, but growing up, I was a little embarrassed to ask what I thought were just very simple questions like, how do you file your taxes? I didn't want to ask anyone. With AI, I don't feel that embarrassment. I could just ask any open-ended question, not to DeepSeek. They'll just track everything that you guys put in there. But I get an immediate answer. And a year ago, you would get a mediocre answer, a lot of hallucinations. Now, both in our AI and, of course, all the big AIs out there, hallucinations are going down. Everything is now getting cited with data sources, either from the internet or from your own files. So the accuracy is increasing. And this is just the tip of the iceberg of where AI is heading. Like if we came this far just in the 3 years that Gen AI has popped up, imagine where we're going to be in 3 to 6 years from now. So that's kind of a little preview of what I'll be talking about, but I'll hand it off to you now.
Okay,
Sure.
Koskas, thank you very much. Yeah, just add on to that, just try out Grok 3, major difference compare OpenAI. Significantly more personalized and a lot more realistic, and very little hallucination too as well. So like I said, it's accelerating very quickly, very quickly. So last but not least, Sundar, would like to talk something about the challenges of personal?
Yes. I'd open up by saying in the 90s when internet started becoming common, easily accessible, I really thought the previous versions of each town having maybe one newspaper or the cities having a couple of TV channels and whatever information you need to get is all like controlled by just 2-3 media avenues. And so now it's completely open up. So if somebody says something incorrect in some little town, somebody else there can immediately go check it up and then like report that to the net, right? And so in a Pollyanna mode, I was hoping that truth will just float up, right? That's not happening. So of course, we all know that we are all descendants of people who took any little, 100, 200,000 years back, there is a little sound somewhere there, and whoever thought that was all a lion, right? So started running or attacking looking for the lion. Those people survived. And then those who thought, it's nothing, probably just some wrestling, then they all got killed probably, right? So we are all descendants of those people. And so in our brains, we have this innate sense to go read anything that looks like a scary story or something that's hyped up. And now with the availability of AI that's becoming so easy to manipulate, use, create all kinds of news, images, videos, our worlds are just getting flooded, and it's really difficult to figure out what is wrong and what is right, or what is true and what is false, right? And by definition, by nature, we tend to go and look at all the negative stuff. That's what attracts our attention. Even in your own family circle, if you forward something that's all very positive, probably doesn't get forwarded much. But if there is something controversial, something dangerous sounding, if you forward, it will quickly go around the world, right? So that's just human nature. And all the technology that we are creating seems to be amplifying these tendencies. So this leads to not only just political polarization, but it can lead to all kinds of victimization. The January talk that I gave was on deepfake videos. So you can talk just about that endlessly for another hour, right? So creating those deepfakes have become so easy. And quite often, whenever we think about the problems or solution, we may be thinking about the areas and the worlds that we live in. But these technologies are becoming so easy to access, use all over the world, right? All you need is a phone and you can access that. And so in other parts of the world where there may not be enough learning, training, this can all be like really used in bad ways to blow societies up, right? So there could be all kinds of victimization. There could be confusion about evidence. 20 years back, if there is a video that showing some atrocity, then that can be an admissible evidence in the courtroom, right? So now people may just say, oh, maybe that's a deep fake video. So how do you know whether it's true or not? So you need to dig in. And of course, there are tools coming in to fix them or detect them, but the creation is also getting better and better, right? And so in general, I'm worried that we are all getting like pulled into and then like either enjoying or like forwarding all these information without really taking the time to stop, think, analyze, and then get into conversations with our own families and friends to make sure what is getting propagated is all right, right? And if you don't do that right, all the virtues of this technology can be blown away by all the negativity that can come in.
Okay, thank you very much for the introductions. Now the fun part begins, right? Now you, as the audience, could ask them questions, and we're going to take turn doing that. And the folks at home too, as well. Even a question, please type it in, and we're going to queue up, and then we're going to try and ask some questions. All right? So let me walk around and with the microphone here. So you raise your hand, I will go and hand you the microphone, and you could ask them directly. And we'll take turns. Like I said, maybe start with Brian, and then go work our way down, and then next time work our way back or something. Okay? Sounds good? All right, let's get it moving. All right. Look at the first question. Connor, go ahead.
Thank you. So you guys had brought up AI in the business world and had mentioned intellectual property, like being dangerous to put into these models where you don't know where that data is getting stored. But I know there's also, or I wanted to ask about your thoughts on the personalized AI models for specifically like a business. You throw in all of your data into that, and it is just an AI model of your business. I was wondering what you guys thought about that sort of use of AI and any potential benefits and drawbacks of it.
Actually, maybe you want to introduce them about LLM, SLM, and
Yeah,
different model size. Maybe that would help too.
I can do a quick, brief academic intro to all the basic terminologies here. LLMs, large language models, these are the neural networks. Just view them as black boxes unless you have 7 hours, I can dive into the math for it. These are the models that predict language and form the language. And for those who are not familiar, what they do is they predict tokens, which you can view them as subwords, and they do it one by one. Then you have SLMs and what we actually offer, micro models, because a model, what it is measured in what's called parameters. For those not familiar, and I think pretty much everybody here is familiar with what a parameter is, imagine it as a weight in a regression model or in y equals mx plus b linear algebra. It's a weight, a variable. So these models have billions and billions of variables. Large language models are in the billions. Small ones are usually in the single digits. Then micro ones are under a billion. And finally, not to take too much time, I'll just catch up on two more topics: agents and RAG. RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. That's, to your point, that's where you dump in all your data typically, and then the AI indexes using what's called vector database and encoding models, and then he uses that as reference to usually answer questions or to do search. It has a number of applications. And finally, agents. Agents, that's a very loaded word because I come from the world of AI and we have a very specific definition. And unfortunately, it's become such a buzz term that it's lost all meaning what an agent is. But in theory, what an agent is that it is an intelligent algorithm that exists in an environment. It can sense the environment and it can take action in the environment. And the way it takes an action is that it usually perceives it, plans, reasons, has memory, and then very smartly takes the action. So in short, those are the basic things you really got to know.
Does that help, Connor? Introduction to models. Okay.
Yeah, well,
All right.
one thing, I mean, within Intel, for example, the ChatGPT or some such equivalent get forked out just for that corporation alone, right? So then to answer, I mean, Paul and Brian's earlier remark, you can then load whatever IP that is strictly confidential, top secret, etc., to that model, and it doesn't go outside your company at all, right? So we have really tried that and used it a lot. I mean, some really complicated block in the IC device, you have like registers running thousands of pages, and you can dump that into that and simply ask, okay, give me a 4-week training program for a new engineer joining this division. So it very nicely breaks it up and says, do this, do this, do this, do this, so that they can nicely get ramped up, right? So basically, you can fork out and then make compartmentalized local model that doesn't expose all the secretive data to the outside world.
Actually, we should talk after this because
Sure.
I'm writing an article with Intel. We're testing on your Lunar Lake
Yes, okay.
AI PCs to do on-prem deployments of LLMs, small SLMs, and RAG systems. So
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
great. Yeah.
what Koskas says is within one PC itself, so it can be that limited, right? So you can do things within just your laptop alone, or you can make it at the company level so that all the other employees in the company have access to that knowledge, but it doesn't go outside that company, right? So you can limit it how much you want to. So get the benefits without revealing all your secrets.
As a disclosure, that's what my company actually does. We do on-prem deployments of small language models and RAG systems that use minimal resources.
Yeah.
We're in a collaboration with Paul here, Alexander Labs, and Ben Franklin. We'll dive a little deeper into that later, but going a little deeper into your question, that is the future. And I think all the major tech companies have realized this. Now they're going to try to get you to go to their cloud systems to do it. I would argue, and I think you would argue too, and all of us here, do it on-prem.
Yeah.
Do not trust the big cloud guys.
From limited even to just.
Especially you don't know where it's stored, right? And require nuclear power plant. Just kidding.
Well, security, privacy, and regulation is going to be a big one. So if you sort of own your own model and it's on-prem, you're going to have a lot more control over the regulatory side of this, which is going to come. So if you sort of build on OpenAI's stack, and then all of a sudden they say, we're going to take this stuff away, what do? Right? You've invested a lot. So on-prem, we're working on some prototype boxes, got some new 5090 NVIDIA GPUs, and those are enough to serve models. And obviously, we're going to need bigger GPUs to train. But the goal right now is to sort of perfect an on-prem box. And I think that's going to be a really interesting area for enterprise specifically. And then it just gives the enterprise the control over this long term. And then they own their data. And then really, it's really compartmentalized for security. And I think that's going to be big in the next few years.
Brian?
What I would say, not specifically AI related, but intellectual properties become much, much harder to protect, than it has been in years past. That understatement of the year, right? But you have, large companies, especially if you're a large company with thousands of employees, you're going to have some employees leave your company, maybe go to a competitor, get recruited by a competitor, specifically because they were in charge of a project or have key knowledge there. And they could be taking intellectual property, they could be taking trade secrets. And as the company that's the owner of that intellectual property, it could be almost impossible to prove that other company is using it or still, especially if it's a trade secret, they're just using it internally. If they come out with the exact same product that you have with a couple more features a year later, then it's a little more cut and dry. But also, a lot of the intellectual property, especially if you're developing chips, maybe at Intel, maybe you can talk to this, but the intellectual property you have may only be good for a year or two, and then the next generation of chips may come out. The cycle of intellectual property is much faster, and it's only one of the modes you can have. And you can protect it as much as you want in the United States, but if there are other countries that don't respect intellectual property, right, then they can do whatever they want.
Brian, what happened? ChatGPT wrote all these powerful NDAs for me. They're not going to do anything?
Right. Well, like, for example, I was a co-op at Alcoa many years ago, and one of their business models was they'd find an application like, a specific alloy of aluminum they wanted to use in the tail of a plane. And what they do is they say, okay, you need a specific alloy. We'll develop it for you, but you got to buy it from us. And it's got to be many, many times the cost of your regular 6061 aluminum because it's a special application. And that was their business model. We make something special. We charge a lot for it because we're the only people that supply it. But one of the things that we use a lot in our devices is, JST connectors or Molex connectors or things like that. If you go to an authorized supplier like DigiKey or Mouser, you can buy sometimes, if they're in stock, the actual JST or Molex connectors, distributed through those companies, and they're very, very expensive. Or you can go to AliExpress, and since they're just plastic injection molded pieces that are very cheap, AliExpress sells them for like a tenth the price. Like, well, for what we're doing, is the, polymer that they're using in that plastic really going to make any difference for what we're doing? We'll just buy it off AliExpress. So if you're going to get into business, don't spend millions and millions of dollars developing these little small 4-pin connectors because they'll just be, ripped off.
Please tell me Boeing isn't doing that.
Next question.
Oh, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to be a bit of the Mad Hatter in the room. A lot of talk I hear from the business side of AI is to, as one of you mentioned, control over or around regulations. How does that pair with ethical AI if half the point is how do we do end runs around AI regulation with on-prem AI?
Is that to me? Yeah.
Sure,
yeah,
sure, go ahead.
I think from the ethical side, like I'm breaking it down into two buckets: privacy and security first, and then I think ethical is going to come in the second bucket. So, uh, um, you want to take it?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I encourage you all to try some of the YouTube videos by Jeff Hinton and then like Jan LeCun, people like that. They are kind of, I mean, they won the Turing Prize recently, and so they are kind of the gods of AI as of now, right? So Jeff Hinton he retired from Google. He's generally very positive, and then he talks about AI is going to go all the way. It's going to develop consciousness, and it's going to do everything, blah blah blah, etc. Jan LeCun still works for Meta. He's the chief of their AI lab, etc. There are some really good. If you just do YouTube search, you would find that. So there are, in addition to that, there is also one very interesting paper titled "How AI Failed Us," right? To like really trying to answer your question. So in that one, they really talk about this already existing AI, which is AEAI, and then already existing digital plurality. So the way currently AI has been developing, it's come to a point where there are these companies that are developing, and then most of the code is still proprietary, and we don't know what's going on, those kinds of things. So the digital plurality idea goes to the ethics of developing AI. So their suggestion is, it's a long paper, but you can read it. It's reasonably well written. It is to see that instead of just rushing to develop whatever human beings can currently do and then just develop replacement for that, find out digital plurality, meaning alternate ways of helping and augmenting the human capability, right? So that way, so for example, I'm sure you all heard about the protein folding problem in pharma, right? So that's one area. Or any NP-complete problem that you need to solve. Those are things that we cannot do as a human being or using existing computers, etc. So if you come up with good AI technology to help in those areas, it will really help human beings, civilization. Ethically, it will be the right thing to do, and so on and so forth. But if you just keep pushing into finding ways where labor can be replaced for things that people are already currently doing, at some point it may start, like society may start raising up and then start opposing, and so on and so forth, right? So it's still not a point where it's all like just gone and so you can't like do anything at all. You can really look into these areas, start the conversation, and then nudge, push, develop different kinds of ideas that can like help and augment what human beings can do, rather than just take it as a concluded notion that we are going into singularity and human civilization is going to be eradicated soon, kind of thing, right? So,
Actually, could we repeat the question again? I think the panel may have forgotten.
am I answering what you were asking, or?
A little. Basically, the
Okay.
question would be more for, especially like say, for example, in bioscience.
Yeah.
You want to have total control over the AI and or to be able to develop it to your own whim. But how do you square away you being able to develop to in parallel or around regulatory interference, but also square that with ethically using AI.
Yeah, at least in that YouTube videos that I was talking about, there are very interesting conversation exactly about that and where should regulations be or how it should be guided and where it should not be. So we should let things run free. And this Jan LeCun is really particular about that dichotomy, right? So if you're, for example, adding AI feature to a car to make sure if there is an obstacle, it just stops. And then even that coming in as part of the regulation or guidance, etc., that's a no-brainer, right? But you don't want to say, oh, you should not develop AI technology at all, kind of thing. So he has put a lot of thought into it. So instead of just me repeating the same thing, you can just look that up. So that's the reason I was starting with that point.
Anyone else want to add to that?
Yeah, I could jump in. Oh, that's what you've outlined is the whole argument for on-prem deployment of AI systems. One, you are future-proofing yourself against any future regulations that may either control it or ban it. For example, in Europe, with their new AI regulations, they're going to start forcing companies that are using like OpenAI to release the models, release their data, pretty much just open their clothes up and just, here's everything that I own in AI. By owning your own AI on-prem, you are protecting yourself against government, against espionage. Now, what are the ethical implications of this? I think it's fairly ethical of owning your own AI and controlling it in-house. Again, it's not a conscious being. You're not torturing the little poor AI. Now, there's a much different aspect of building your own AI in-house versus, let's say, getting an AI and just keeping it in-house. From an R&D perspective, I'm in full support of like Professor Jan LeCun of like everything should be open source, public. I'm very much against the way that OpenAI operates. Like even at Go Charlie, while we do have some closed models, we publish a lot and open source a lot as well. And I believe a lot of AI companies should be taking this direction. But then when it comes to putting it into production for your companies, it should be fully owned by the company, or at least fully controlled by the company. Because the moment you release your AI to be controlled either by Chinese firms or by Google or by OpenAI or by Meta or Amazon, at that point, you're at the full mercy of these guys. And AI is, unlike other tools, this is not data storage.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the big, data now is, we get to data, so it's your data, right? So you're building a model based on your data, so I think that's fairly ethical. And we got to look at data now like oil, right? Oil powered the Industrial Revolution, right? Data will power the AI revolution. So, like, companies are really struggling. I met with a client today, and they're like, we're normalizing our data. It's going to take 3 years. So they're going to be, so they're normalizing it, and they're going to get this data in a format that they can start leveraging it with AI, but it's going to take a while. So I think ethically, if it's your data, you're training on your data, you're building your models to do, what you need them to do to be effective in the enterprise, it's 100% ethical. And obviously it gets into the security and the privacy. And to Kostas' point, we're not very far away from a lot of this stuff happening, and companies are going to really start thinking about this a lot more.
In fact,
I think we can differentiate between developing new models, right? And then using that, or like the code to create models, and then using your personal data to generate the model that you will actually use. So like he said, that the second part where you are feeding your own data, like I was saying, our own chip detail to do whatever you want to do, design a better chip or develop a training program, that's for your own company or at your personal use level. So there, keeping it private, I don't see any ethical problem with that. But again, if you're developing a new AI model, meaning the code to create a new version of the model that's better than GPT, something, then that should be open, meaning there should be more collaboration so that others can use it and create their own, they can use it for whatever research projects that they want to do, right? So you can think of the AI research and then the actual model development for your personal or the company level usage.
Brian, anything to add?
Yeah, I have two basic comments to add. Governments are going to have to be very, very careful how they regulate AI because, some country like, if Europe says we're going to do something very, very strict, that might just, push AI development to countries where it's a free-for-all. And a company that wants to do business in Europe might just set up a subsidiary in this other country and say, well, that's some other subsidiary. They can do whatever they want. And we see things like that, not just in the countries, but in different states. If you look, a lot of banks are headquartered in places like South Dakota because the banking laws are very, very favorable there. Or if you want to bring lawsuits on certain things, you go forum shopping, and certain states are more favorable or unfavorable, depending on the type of suit you want to bring. So, and that's why you can't just say, well, the government's going to regulate AI, very, very tightly, and it's going to be able to control it. It's not. It's just going to push it somewhere else. The other point I want to make is, as far as ethics are concerned, the people that are using the AI or the businesses that are using the AI are still going to be responsible for the, ethical end results of things because you can do things perfectly ethically or by the book in this country and still create something very dangerous. I mean, we can still have, gambling, which is legal in many parts of this country. You can still have, drugs. You can still have cigarettes, which are, dangerous and harmful in a lot of ways. I mean, some people still like them. We can, have that argument. But, it's the business. Or, for example, you drive a car to get here. Well, you can cause a lot of damage with a car. But you have to have insurance before you drive that car so that you're legally allowed to drive it, because in the end, someone's got to be responsible if it's wrong. And if a company makes an AI and does something wrong, they're going to suffer the consequences. Just like right now, even if they're not using AI, if some executive does something that's really, really bad and embezzles a whole bunch of money, they're going to go to jail, or the company could suffer. Like, Volkswagen Dieselgate, when they, ignore all kinds of emissions requirements and sweep them under the rug.
AI insurance, that could be a big thing.
Oh, yeah,
And-
it's
and the-
coming, it's coming,
And
don't
the
you
AI
worry.
is pricey insurance.
All right. It's probably too late, they'll probably figure it out already. But,
Costas, you're going to get charged.
so thank you for the information. Bless you. Just academic classroom perspective, I thought I want to add a little twist to that too. I know, I'm not sure how many other faculty in the audience here, but AI has definitely changed how assignments are being done, and it accelerates learning process. Actually, it's no longer simple assignments. Say, hey, write this little program to do this. They say, oh yeah, here's this. Using AI. Yeah, it's not integration. You have many pieces. You have to pull them together, so it requires some critical thinking. So it's not the content as much as critical thinking now. It's more important. That's what the bottom line is, right? So I think AI is going to accelerate that a lot. So a lot of assignment in the future for those students in my class, especially, it's going to change, right? So it's no longer simple, hey, write a program, one assignment. But for game dev, I teach game devs, integration is the whole entire life cycle, not just one area now, because you can do it a lot easier. And I'm allowed to do that too. They say you're allowed to get AI art, you're allowed to AI prompt, everything, but you do the whole entire phase of it in a teamwork process. So it's changed a lot. As far as the legal side, compliance side, all my codes and everything, they have to reference. Even it's AI, they have to reference AI location, and even the prompt, how do we put it together. So if I was a reader, I have the right to know exactly how it was done. Okay, so it's changed a lot compared to what we used to do. So yes, so I know it's 8 o'clock. We could continue to, as far as we can, no later than 8:30. We only have 2 questions out of the way, so I'm sure there's a lot more questions. There is one online, so let me talk about that. The question here is, what is your take on AI attaining consciousness? And hypothetically speaking, if it does, then its impact on current human-only dominated society, which will now have another competing species.
Not another one of these questions. Okay.
This is still sci-fi yet, but it doesn't have a conscious, right? Yet,
No.
right? Okay.
No, not for a while. None of the AI systems being developed now are anywhere near, I would say, what we would even, from a philosophical aspect, argue are conscious. In fact, a big problem in the world of AI is that there is no standard definition of what is intelligence, what is consciousness. Even from the world of cognitive science, neuroscience, psychology, scientists don't even agree what consciousness is to begin with, let alone AI scientists figuring out, okay, how do we build consciousness? Our current systems, what we have now, these neural networks, and even with these agents, are not conscious. These are statistical learning algorithms. They're nothing more than a fancy calculator. In fact, there's an argument called in philosophy Cyril's Chinese room, which is basically argues if you pass a Chinese note through the slot of a door and you get back a perfect response, is that room consciousness? No, someone is back there looking up an answer and giving back the solution from a huge library of answers, basically. That person does not speak Chinese. The question actually was, does that person know Chinese? The answer is no, he does not know Chinese. He's just giving you the perfect answer from a book. Will we ever have conscious AI? Probably, but not for a very, very long time. I would argue decades. What would happen when that does come around? Well, that's where I'm building a bunker in my house.
This may be a good opportunity to plug my book. The thought experiment book actually has the Chinese room problem discussed about. I'm not trying to make money. All the money that comes from selling that book goes to charity. Okay, so to just follow on what Koskas was saying, again, these two guys, right? The Jeff Hinton really thinks consciousness is coming. It's right there kind of thing. And then this Jan LeCun doesn't think. And I'm more on the Jan side because you all know about AI winter. Every now and then it keeps going up and down kind of thing. Right now, because of this chat GPT coming in that made it so accessible to people, it's there in the popular culture everywhere, right? But if you really go into it, it's kind of, to a pretty good extent, it can do language, right? So it can pass bar exams and so forth. But if you really dig into it, AI still can't do many things even like a house cat can do, right? I mean, just look at the scene and jump there and go there, or if you drop it, it can land on its feet. I know robots are there, they are trying to learn this and that. But if you take, for example, a video, you just show this, the current large language models, you all probably know, I mean, they tries to predict the successive words to construct the answer that you are looking for. It's very difficult to do it in video, right? So there are a lot of areas in which AI still is nowhere near even what kids can do, etc. And so I'm an engineer. If things work, use it, right? So we don't need to keep endlessly talking about philosophy to use the system. So I'm good on that front. But really, is it going to become consciousness? It may mimic consciousness, but for it to really come to the point of a human consciousness level, there is a lot of other things that need to be brought inside AI, and that's not happening that fast. So in fact, in general, the progress is going to be pretty good in some areas, but the overall progress is going to be limited to wherever the weakest link is, right? So the actual maybe construction of a building or some learning how visual things work and some such thing that AI can't master that's going to put a limit on how quickly things can go. But still, a lot of good things can happen. So this Anthropic CEO, Dario Amodei, right? So he has written like a 15,000 word blog paper kind of thing, which is really well written. So he's really talking about what are all the good things that can come in the next 10 years using the existing technology under normal progression, right? Very good read to look at that. But full consciousness like human being, I think it's still, for now, it's science fiction, right? So that's.
All right. Anyone else want to add?
I just think if you think about it like a calculator is a calculator, calculator is smart. No, I don't know if you can say a calculator is smart, it solves a problem, but it's, it's not, it's a tool. So I think that's where we are with AI right now. It's a tool. We're far away from that side of it.
Yeah, well, I will say, we do not need to invent consciousness in order to get economic utility out of AI.
Yeah.
I do believe AI will do great things in the coming years. In the coming decades, it'll do everything that humans can do and much, much more without ever achieving consciousness or having emotions, having feelings, feeling pain and pleasure and all that. I think it will, and ethically, I would say it should stay as a tool indefinitely.
You can make it mimic whatever you want, right? But that's not the true.
Okay, next question. Okay, I just have a.
Paul, I think for me, you hit the nail on the head in regards to a tool, right? And I would be interested in hearing each one of you give an example or two on how us technology professionals can bring an idea to either increase revenue or decrease expenses to their leadership teams.
Since we were originally talking in like personal and professional front, maybe somebody else can do on the professional front. But I'd say I have a niece, right, next generation. She was born and brought up in India, and then now she lives and works in Germany. She's been there only for a couple of years, but now whenever she's looking for a new job, and she switched job from A to B, while doing the interviews, she really went around finding out who the interviewers are going to be in the company where she's interviewing. And then not only just learning about them, giving their LinkedIn profile and their details to ChatGPT so that it can go and figure out what their interests are and then coach her on like how to answer that particular person, right? So they may have some particular interest in pickleball or like women in tech, something like that. So it was like even coaching her to say, when you get a chance, you should ask about pickleball or women in tech, right? So that person will really remember that interview and then like this candidate who has come in. I didn't think of that. So I mean, I generally thought, yeah, you should learn about the company and like your skill set and how to match and what you have to say. But it's very easy to go to that second, third, fourth level using the tools. So this can exactly be used even on the company side, right? So if you're going to work with another company, you can find a lot more information, and without you having to grok all the information, you can get the help from AI tools to just guide you in the right direction and make things much more productive very quickly.
Anyone else?
Sure. Working in with Go Charlie, we sort of built this enterprise sandbox, and it's really interesting because you've got all these tools out there, right? ChatGPT, image tools. So what we've done was we've taken all the tools that we think add efficiency and we put them in this sandbox. It's kind of like a playground, right? So the goal is that, hey, you give your team this sandbox and you just let them play around. You let them experiment. Obviously, they're going to boost their efficiency massively, right? They're going to be motivated, more creative. So I think companies just need to sort of jump off that cliff and really give their employees the resources to start doing this. Of course, what's great about the sandbox we built, it's in a private vault, so none of the data goes out to anybody but your own private vault. And it's sort of secure. So for banks, healthcare systems, things like this, it's quite important. But I think those type of tools will be really good. And that's one of the things I keep hearing from people. It's like, there's so many different AI tools. Well, if they're all in one little place, I kind of like look at it like Microsoft Office for AI. So you just sort of, what made Microsoft Office so special? It just had these tools that everybody used for business, right? That made everything efficient. I could use Notepad to write something, but it was great to put it in Word, bold it, put some bullets, and people could understand that content better. So I think AI can do a lot of that stuff. And companies just need to embrace it. They're not quite there yet. And I think CEOs and executives are a little afraid because they don't know. And when you don't know something, you just sort of push it aside. They don't really want to learn about it yet. So at the lab, we created, it wasn't sort of in my bio, but in the Lehigh Valley, we created this new AI lab called Alexander Labs. And the goal is to nurture, local talent with AI and to bring awareness with a Gen AI across the Lehigh Valley, help businesses sort of start embracing it with seminars and some training. And we're building, in partnership with Charlie, we're building a GoPrem on-prem box for security and stuff. So there's a lot of great things happening. If you're down by Air Products' new main campus, that's where our facility is. You can can get you guys the address.
Sounds like a great time for a tour next year.
And stop down and take a look. But it's just fun, sit in there. You can play with the sandbox, come down and experiment with the sandbox we built. But I just think companies really do need to just sort of embrace it and jump in. And the problem is privacy and security. So apps like Charlie building these sort of, little sandboxes and playground are going to make it a lot more easy. And if anybody wants access to the sandbox, let me know. I can give you access and take it away in 15 days, and then you'll beg me to give you it back for $30 a month. No, I'm kidding.
To add a little bit about that, Angelo, to your point on what are some example use cases that, especially for enterprises, bring a big ROI, and I'll answer that both in terms of use cases and how to think about it in a strategic framework. Because a lot of companies, when they think about AI, think, oh, ChatGPT or Copilot, but it's a lot more than just that. And either they say, oh, if it's ChatGPT, I don't want to use it, and they just freeze in their tracks. They never implement AI, and now they're falling behind. But in terms of use cases, you have sales chatbots that can generate leads or help close deals a lot faster. Customer support is another huge one that many companies are beginning to implement full AI systems, not just as chatbots, but also with voice assistants, where you can just call it, it talks like a human, you can't even recognize it's an AI. You can ask it, tell it anything, and get your query immediately, satisfied. Then you have, of course, marketing. Right now, not only are we building this, but this will be the future of marketing for companies. You're going to have agents run entire hyper-personalized marketing campaigns for all of your clients. If you're B2B, they're going to be going out to businesses, selling them full pitch decks, fully customized. If you're B2C, it's sending hyper-personalized emails, messages, SMS. Like, it's going to maximize your marketing campaigns to get leads, to get revenue. All across the board, AI is just going to dramatically boost ROI. Give me a department, and I'll tell you use cases for that department. From IT operations and technology, it's already being implemented for programming, be it generating error logs, reports, handling any kind of debugging queries, doing PRs. If you're not using AI, you are falling behind right now. You are slowing down your company, you're slowing down your own workflow. So from that perspective, you're going to speed yourself. Now, there's going to be some consequences to this, some human consequences. By becoming a 10x engineer, a 10x employee with AI, the company will just become reliant on you and say, well, we don't need to hire 10 people. You could do the work of 10 people yourself with AI. But that's a whole other problem, a political problem, which I don't know if I want to get into that.
Other perspective?
Yeah, I think the best way to have companies implement AI is you got to look at it as a company's going to have a bunch of problems to solve and be looking for technology to solve that, as opposed to looking for a technology and figuring out how to apply it. Like, you could use AI, or you could bring in electricity. Well, how are we going to use electricity, 100 years ago? So your company might say, hey, we have all these people in the call center because we need to have customer support 24/7. What can we do to reduce costs and increase customer service? Okay, you have your AI chatbots. You can have AI salespeople. We have a lot of programmers. We got a lot of development to do, and it's going to take us, a year to get our software up and running. What can we do? Oh, we can use AI to speed up our software development. Or, we can use AI to analyze these mounds and mounds of data to make our diagnoses better, for example. So I think that's probably going to be the best way to implement AI. And it's not necessarily going to be a top-down edict where the CEO is going to come in and say, hey, you guys got to start using AI. A lot of the tools you see are, younger people coming in who have just graduated college, who have familiarity with the new tools like the 3D printers, the laser cutters, the latest programming languages, and they come in and do that. Not necessarily the people who've been there 20 or 30 years. The people who've been there 20, 30 years have their own experience in running other things, and the experience is good for, solving other types of problems or seeing how things has been done before. But any good, healthy company is going to need new blood coming in, with the new ideas, and not be dependent on everyone who's been there 20 years going out there and figuring it out on their own.
All right, just added to what the whole panel mentioned here. From my background, for those who don't know, is game development and security. So from a game development perspective, I'm not sure, my specialty was actually artificial intelligence interactive fiction game, IF game, text game, for those who still remember, it has changed dramatically with AI so much. It's incredibly different. So what happened to game development is no longer a question of how you implement the technology side, but it's how close you could get to the player in this, or the user. So is the user or the end game, you want to call it, that's what you want to answer. What's their needs? How can you get that product to the market the closest, what they want, how you customize to what they want. So game dev with AI-IF, it's about how you design the story. It's more important about how do you code it anymore. Coding is irrelevant. It is the story that drives the player and gameplay, not the coding, the technology side. So AI is going to help accelerate that process a lot closer and closer to the player perspective. So very different than when I used to program like decades ago, sitting there, if go left, then do this, you know, I mean, very explicit. There's none of that anymore. It's very agile. The player can do so much more than it ever done before. So now the goal is to get how close you are to the customer. That's the end goal. The closer you are to it, the better a company will be. I think it's the bottom line. But just my perspective, from a game dev perspective.
Can I
All right.
propose something very
go
quick
ahead.
to the audience, just for 5 minutes?
Yes.
With a raise of hand, who here for their current work uses AI? Raise your hands. Excellent. And then could you just pass the microphone to the 1 or 2 people, very briefly explain how do you use and how has it benefited you in your work?
Would you want to answer that question? Okay, sure.
Hi, everyone. My name's Sean. I run one of the portfolio companies here downstairs. We've actually successfully deployed a virtual agent in the automotive industry, truly replacing shop attendants. So this agent we rolled out, can greet customers, call routing, all of it. We've done it in weeks. So this has been truly informative, especially from a natural language processor, Google Dialogflow perspective of like, it's getting cheaper and cheaper it feels like every season, every quarter, it's getting cheaper and cheaper. We've scaled it, deployed it. We have a handful of shops on it. It's been super successful for us, but it also worries me long-term about where we're going with these agents, verticals, horizontals across like many industries. I would love your take on where do you see this going at scale over the next 5 years? Zuckerberg mentioned he mentioned even AI actually being able to replace junior developers in a talk not too long ago. Where do you see these agents going 5-10 years?
Let me put a quick pin in that.
Yeah.
I want to hear a few more stories, and then I think it'd be great if we conclude each of us 30 seconds. Where do we predict AI will be in
All
10
right,
years
sounds
from
good.
now?
Yeah, we only have about 5-10 minutes. I know, and you know, you guys enjoying this conversation, but it's like almost 8:30. It's just okay. All right.
We do one, two.
Anyone else want to talk about the applications of AI right now at work?
Don't be embarrassed.
Go ahead. I know you have a lot of hands on here. Come on. Well, Connors, here you go.
So Wayne Barrs here, I'm Chief Investment Officer at Ben Franklin. I mean, I use it to figure out what you people are talking about. All right, so it is like a deep Google for me, because we've got clients in every kind of technology that comes around, and everything is new. Even though I knew something about semiconductor manufacturing 15 years ago, it's all different now, and so I'm using it just to deepen knowledge for my own head and teaching me where to go for additional info.
Hi, I'm Mark Earl. I'm with Lehigh University computer science professor. I use it for generating emails. I use it for generating proposals. I use it for generating homework assignments, lecture slides, proposals for funding. I mean, I'm using it all the time for pretty much every aspect of my job. And yeah, it's amazing. More than a calculator. I know we were just using that as a reference, but yeah.
I'm Tim Custrom with the Pennsylvania State System of Higher Education. We're using Microsoft Copilot in our organization, and the way that we're using it primarily is a productivity enhancement tool, right? So you've got it running while you're in a Teams meeting. It's taking minutes. It's collecting that information. You can, look, it'll take the actions from the meeting and things like that, right? It integrates with email. It integrates with your calendar. So very much a productivity tool. is the way that we're using it in our organization.
Hi, my name's Corey Waterhouse. Similar to Tim, I'm a project manager and use AI extensively through meetings and taking agenda items, generating meeting notes afterwards. And, as a PM, a lot of what I do is sending out those notes, action items, doing follow-ups. So I'm very used to doing that myself, but having AI as a tool to reference and balance my notes versus what it's picked up, and then synthesize that into just a greater effort and making sure that I'm not missing any key points in those discussions. It's been a huge help for me and making sure that I'm doing my job properly.
So I use ChatGPT to understand professor slides sometimes, because though I ask questions, what exactly those things are there, but I still have some questions, so I put them in ChatGPT. And also, when I ask something little complex question on stats or mathematics on ChatGPT, it gives us like 3 to 4 types of answers. So sometimes I play with between them, like to understand what the perspectives are there actually. Yeah. But actually, I want to add something. Can I ask that thing? So all of you are talking about like the good thing and bad thing are in the AI things, whether we are going to singularity or not. But I feel like that particularly in healthcare, in pharma industry, means when we are trying to develop a new drug and all those things, I think this machine learning or AI thing is really helpful, because it only not save our time, but also it save our lives also. So I don't know whether you have time to discuss all these things or not, but what are the bad things it can happen if you use AI in drug industry, all these things? Yeah, thank you.
Oh, by the way, I tell my student that put the PowerPoint in AI and my last exam and quizzes, so it could project my questions I would ask. So they study by using AI. It's a good thing. However, I have to admit, though, I don't give a lot more exam and more project-based. So. Other questions? Other comment about application to your workplace for using AI? Curious? All right, none? All right. I mean, like I say, we're running up here at the end, so perhaps the panel could actually summarize a little bit, like take turns, just a couple minutes, summarize.
We owe an
Okay.
answer to the
Yes,
future.
yes. Okay, of course. Go ahead.
Yep. Yeah, so whenever I go to universities and then do any like ask me anything kind of session, I start by saying I'm not a YouTube influencer, right? So the question or whatever we can say, it's never going to be pretty simple. Just do this one thing and then everything is going to be fantastic. Or I mean, you can't simplify things that way. So AI is along that line, right? So to answer your point, if you read that Dario Amodai's this long write-up, drug development is a big thing. Because ChatGPT came in, and then you can see even all the discussion that we are having, the AI is perceived more or less like a language tool. It's always like working in some language area, right? But it can do a lot more. So drug development is like one area, and then of course, either that or people generally think of deep fake video. I mean, that's only those two things come up in people's mind in popular culture, but it can do a lot more. So that Amodai's paper it's really well written. So you can think about to see how it can expand. So naturally, it's like develop a knife, you can cut vegetable, cook or like kill people kind of thing. So you really need to see how we as a society get involved and then make sure this is all going in the right direction. Often we tend to think the Googles and Microsofts are the one they are doing it. We just start using the tools kind of thing. But we all have a role to play, right? We are all part of the society. So talk to your family, friends, get yourself more educated as I am trying to do, watch, read, think about, and then in a very civil way, express your thoughts, ideas, concerns, so that we can move in the right direction, right? So it can go either way, but there is a lot of good virtues that need to be harvested. So we don't want to put like blind dead ends, rather than that, guide it in the right way and make sure it helps humanity. So, I mean, it just like I think in many African countries, when mobile phones were introduced, they came with Facebook pre-installed. So the perception of internet in many people's mind were Facebook, right? So similarly, I think right now with ChatGPT's explosion, when we think of AI, we are generally thinking of some language variation tool kind of thing, but it has a lot more potential that we should be ready to like get into and harvest. Thank you.
So to repeat the question, where is AI going to be in 10 years from now? I love this question because I love answering it. I'll give two perspectives. From a technology perspective, AI will become more cognitive. I do believe we will go from the era of generative AI to cognitive AI, where through more complex agent architectures that include more reasoning, more memory, learning abilities, long-term, short-term memory, cognition modules, the AI itself will go from creating content, be it chatbots, images, marketing copy, to making autonomous decisions with your software. We will be entering a future in 10 years from now, maybe sooner, where anything that you can do as a job that requires you to use just a laptop, if a laptop is all you need for your job, 10 years from now, AI will be doing that job. Plain and simple. I dare you to find me a job that can be done on a laptop that AI cannot do, be it from content creation, building software, anything. But a fun fact, 10 years from now, and we're seeing the early days of this, just from the side of entertainment, we will see a renaissance of personalized entertainment, where you will ask AI, hey, give me 8 more seasons of Game of Thrones, or or remake the Jurassic Park movie. Anything you want, it'll give you like Hollywood perfect entertainment. I think there's massive implications to the industry, but I think from a personal perspective, it's going to become mind-blowing what we will get from AI. And then going back to your work, yes, AI will be coming for your work. It's going to be incredible what it could do. That said, there will be political repercussions because it could do pretty much all white-collar work at that point. That's my TED Talk.
Oh, hate to follow that one. Now, I think to Kostas' point, you know, if it can be done on a computer, it's going to be done with AI in the near future. So, as someone out there that's worried about that, there's still so many jobs and so many places to, you know, for young people coming up to focus, and you know, anything that is manual, or you know, nobody's going to replace the lawyer that is making documents. He won't be around anymore, but the lawyer that's, you know, handling my divorce will. So because he's going to have to mitigate. I don't think AI will be able to do that. So anyway, the point is that I think, you know, AI is going to continue. I think society needs to embrace it. It's going to be a messy sort of next decade, a little bit. But the tools are solid, and I think most of them are operating in a somewhat ethical model. And I think we just need to look at it from a business standpoint. I think you really need to jump in like now. And I don't think you can wait. I think if your data is bad, you need to start fixing that. And I feel like businesses who just are, you know, and Kostas sees this a lot too, well, we're just going to see what happens over the next year. It's like, well, you're already a year behind. You're going to be 2 years behind. So I think at some point, and to Brian made a good point, just look at for like a tiny, small problem and try to solve it. You're not going to come out and create an AI roadmap for your enterprise. Companies, I think that's what they're trying to do. Like, okay, let's try to figure it all out and then we'll execute. I think find small problems, try to solve those small problems with AI. There's thousands of them out there, and on a personal level, you can do the same thing. Use AI to solve these small problems that you have in your life, from planning, I mean, there's just so many ways you can leverage it, and then you'll learn about it, and then you can translate that into your business life as well. So just, don't be afraid of it. Get using it. It's coming, and you gotta get on board or get out of the way.
Brian?
All right, what I've seen is a lot of people think, and as you guys have said, if you have a white collar job that requires a laptop, that's going to be gone in 10 years. So what a lot of people say is, okay, so, become a tradesman, become a plumber, become a carpenter, become an electrician, right? Or become a pilot, right? Because, maybe they could fly airplanes with AI, but, the regs might still require a human in the cockpit. But I think what's going to happen is right now we see, ChatGPT and everything, these large language models just existing, on the internet, just looking at all the textual data that's there. There's going to be a big focus on, first off, training these models over the next couple of years. So it might not be just reading stuff, but think of how many hours of YouTube videos there are there, and think of, how smart the average 5 or 6 year old is, and how many hours of actual life they've experienced where they're awake. A computer could watch that many hours of YouTube videos very, very quickly. So I think there's going to be a lot more training from other methods, and we're going to see a lot more things in the physical world where the AI is going to have to learn and interact with the world, bump into a few walls, realize it's painful and that causes damage, and be told not to do that, just like a 5 or 6 year old, don't put your hand on the stove when it's on. That's going to hurt. Don't stick that knife into the electrical outlet. That's going to hurt. And that's how, because one of the big complaints is AI doesn't have a lot of common sense, as far as interaction with the real world. So I think eventually, the white collar jobs may be taken over, but at some point we're going to have the blue collar jobs will be able to be, largely augmented, if not completely taken over by AI as well. The issue is you got the whole complexity of all the mechanics walking around, manipulating tools, manipulating wires, and performing all those tasks. But there's no reason if we can automate the white collar jobs that those jobs aren't coming down the pike to be automated. So I think it's going to be getting a lot more involved in the physical world as well. In addition to that's going to help with the learning.
Thank you very much. Just add a little, I guess, my piece of thought. Brian mentioned about the last mile AI, right? It has to touch a physical side somehow. So Jim, thank you very much for helping out tonight. This is the physical mile. Someone still need to set up the microphone, test it and everything. That's not going to be replaced by AI, sorry. So the last mile is still human beings, right? However, I do want to add something though, from just a little piece of wisdom for those younger people in this room. At one time, before a computer was huge, talking about going back to my starting point about typewriter, it took an army of clerk, secretary to actually type up memos. And if you're a large company, you literally have to type it up, and of course, human beings make a lot of mistakes, right? And we white out and we type it up again. And we send that memo throughout the company. By the time you tally up everything manually, it takes weeks, right? Now, you literally could take minutes for them to type up the memo, send it out, and you could track on the server side who has, when it was sent out, who opened it, who deleted it, who read it, all that stuff automatically like that. It put all our secretary's job out of work, believe me, a lot. However, what they didn't see at that time was that all the jobs opening up for technology, incredibly, I'm not sure how many hundreds of fold compared to a number of jobs that secretary was lost. AI is going to be the same thing. You might think, oh, I'm going to be a developer. You might not need to be developers anymore, but there's going to be many other jobs coming up that you're not even aware of. Okay, maybe hundreds more, maybe hundreds times more. So the question is, what is that opportunity as entrepreneur? You have to think, okay, what is the next step? Take micro step. Don't try and take something huge step or something large, because you're going to bite more than you can chew, right? So I think that's the key. What's next? And like I said, the closer you get to the end user, that's what you want. That's going to be the next step. So anyway, thank you very much for the panel being here. Thank you very much. Give a big hand of applause. Thank you for our host, Ben Franklin, for having us here. Oh, okay, Jeff, here? Okay, I'm tapping. Thank you. Good. Put it this way, all the dessert are gone like that. Most of the food are gone, so it was perfect.